The twin suns of Trelvan burned high in the pale sky, casting long shadows over the endless desert. Wind carried dust like waves across the dunes, whispering through old wrecks that lay half buried in the sand. The planet had been silent for hundreds of years. Ever since the last war between the alien empires turned it into a graveyard, a single figure walked across that silence. His name was Rian, a human miner who worked alone. His ship rested miles away, hidden behind a ridge where his scanner tower blinked with weak blue light. He came here for the same reason most humans did, to find forgotten metal, to dig for power cores, or to search for any piece of ancient technology left behind. Rian was not rich, not brave, not famous. He was only a man who wanted to survive. But Trelvan had a strange pull on him. The planet was quiet, lonely, and filled with secrets. Every time he came, he felt that something beneath the surface was waiting. He wiped the dust off his visor and checked his handheld scanner. A faint pulse blinked on the display, weak energy reading from deep below the sand. It was unusual because most signals were from broken machines or dry batteries, but this one had rhythm like a slow heartbeat. Rian frowned. Strange, he said to himself. This should be dead ground. He set his gear down and unfolded his dig tools. The sand was soft at first, but deeper layers turned to packed dirt mixed with shards of metal and crystal. His small digging drone hummed to life beside him, scraping away at the surface. The signal grew stronger, steadier. After an hour, he uncovered a smooth metallic surface. It looked too clean to be wreckage. The metal was curved, shaped almost like a dome, covered with a layer of glassy sand. He ran his gloved hand over it and found ancient markings carved into the side symbols that looked like vines twisting around circles. Rian switched on his translator, but it gave no match. Old Trelvani, maybe? He guessed. The Trelvani were said to be a proud and powerful species that once ruled this part of space. Now they were gone, their cities lost to time. The signal came from under the dome. Whatever it was still alive, or at least still powered. He checked his air level and decided to go deeper. He cleared away more sand until he found a sealed hatch. It had no visible lock, only a small round stone embedded at its center. He touched it, and for a second the stone glowed faintly blue. Then the light vanished. Rian stepped back. He did not know if it was safe. Many old vaults had traps or radiation leaks, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. He fetched his plasma cutter from his pack and began to slice through the metal. The hiss of the tool broke the silence, sparks dancing in the air. The hatch finally gave way with a dull thud, releasing a breath of cold air that smelled like dust and age. A narrow tunnel led down into darkness. Rian switched on his helmet light and climbed down slowly. The air was thin, but breathable. He followed the tunnel until it opened into a large chamber made of black stone. The place looked like a tomb. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the walls, their light soft and pale. In the center of the chamber stood a crystal coffin, long and elegant, surrounded by pillars covered in silver writing. Rian froze. He had never seen anything like it. He walked closer. Inside the coffin lay a figure. It was a woman, tall and slender, with skin that shimmered faintly under his light. Her face was calm, her hair long and silver like threads of light. Her body was wrapped in bands of shining metal, almost like armor, but fused into her form. She looked peaceful, almost asleep. But the scanner in his hand was still reading a pulse. A real one. Slow, weak, but steady. Rian's heart pounded. "No way," he whispered. "That's impossible." He checked again. The signal was coming from her chest. The energy was faint, but it was alive. He had seen cryo chambers before, but none this old could still work. Whoever she was, she must have been sealed here for centuries. He looked at the writings again. The translator blinked and caught a partial match this time. The words formed a broken phrase. "Here rests Alira, daughter of the Star Thrones, queen of the Trelvani." Rian stepped back. He had found the tomb of a queen. He stared at her face, unsure what to do. If she was really alive, she would die soon if he did nothing. Her stasis field was flickering, losing power. The air inside the chamber was colder now, and tiny cracks formed along the crystal surface. He knelt beside the coffin. "I don't know who you are," he said softly, "but if you're still breathing, I'm not leaving you here." He searched the side of the chamber for any control panels. At last, he found a small console hidden behind one of the pillars. Its screen was shattered, but a few lights still blinked. He plugged in his repair tool, sending a low current to reboot the old system. The console flickered to life, showing alien symbols across the display. He pressed a few buttons, guessing based on pattern and rhythm. A soft hum filled the chamber. The bindings around the coffin began to loosen, sliding away like ribbons of light. Then the crystal top split down the middle with a quiet hiss. Cold air rushed out. Rian stepped closer, heart racing. The figure inside took a sudden weak breath. Her chest rose, then fell. Rian froze in shock. She was alive. He reached in and carefully lifted her head. Her skin was cool, but not cold. Her lips parted as she gasped for air again, her body trembling. She opened her eyes slightly pale blue, glowing faintly like frost under light. Her gaze met his for only a moment before her eyes closed again. "It's okay," Rian said. "You're safe now. You're not alone." He wrapped her in his emergency blanket and checked her vitals with his scanner. The readings were unstable, her heart beating irregularly. She needed warmth, air, and fluids. He lifted her gently and carried her toward the tunnel. It took all his strength to climb back to the surface. The suns were lower now, painting the desert orange and gold. His camp was a small dome shelter nearby. He laid her inside and started the heater. Hours passed. He gave her small sips of water through a dropper and waited. She was breathing now, slow and steady. Her skin had gained a faint color. He sat beside her, staring through the window at the horizon. The desert was still silent, but it no longer felt empty. Something had changed. He had unearthed more than a relic. He had awakened a piece of history. As the night fell, faint stars began to appear in the sky. Rian looked down at the sleeping figure beside him. She was unlike any alien he had ever seen. There was something graceful and powerful about her, even in her weakened state. He wondered what kind of world she had ruled, what kind of people she had led, and why she had been buried alive. He whispered quietly, "Queen Alira, I hope you can tell me your story when you wake." The wind outside howled softly against the dome, carrying the distant sound of shifting dunes. Beneath that endless desert lay the ruins of an empire long gone, and above it sat a single human who had just changed the fate of two worlds without even knowing it. The night stretched on, filled with quiet breathing and the low hum of machines. In that moment, Rian understood something simple but powerful, sometimes the smallest act. A single choice to dig could awaken something far greater than anyone imagined. And in the deep silence of Trelvin, where no song had been heard for ages, the buried queen drew another breath. When the first sun rose over the desert, light spilled into Rian's small camp. The heat crept in slowly, warming the metal walls of his shelter. Rian sat beside the still figure of the alien queen, his eyes heavy but alert. He had not slept much. All night he watched her, checking her breathing, adjusting the heater, and wondering if she would open her eyes again. She looked peaceful now. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the light, and her long hair shimmered like glass threads. Her clothes, made from fine layers of woven metal, looked ancient but untouched by time. Rian could not believe that someone like her had been buried under sand for so long. He turned on his scanner again. The readings showed life, though still weak. Her heart rate was slow, but steady. The strange energy that came from her body had stabilized. It was not human energy, but something more refined, almost musical in pattern. Rian leaned back and sighed. "You survived centuries," he said softly. "You deserve a chance to live again." He heated water and mixed some of his nutrient packs into it, hoping it would help. After checking her pulse again, he decided to try waking her. He spoke slowly, unsure if she would understand human speech. "Hey, can you hear me? You're safe now. You're not underground anymore." There was no response at first. Then her fingers twitched slightly. Rian froze. Her eyelids moved, and slowly her blue eyes opened. The light inside them was soft, but full of confusion. She blinked several times. Looking around the small shelter, her gaze fell on Rian. She looked at him as if trying to understand what he was. Her lips parted, and she spoke something in a soft voice. But the words were not in any human language. Rian raised his hands to show peace. "It's okay," he said. "You're safe. My name is Rian." She repeated the name quietly, her voice weak and dry. "Rian?" Then she tried to sit up, but her strength failed. He quickly helped her rest against a pillow. Her breathing was uneven, and her eyes were still cloudy. She looked at him again, and then at her hands, as if seeing them for the first time in ages. "How long?" she said, struggling with the words. "How long has it been?" Rian was surprised that she could speak his language at all. He guessed the translator chip in her body was adapting. "I don't know," he answered. "Your tomb looked ancient. Maybe hundreds of years. Maybe more." Her eyes filled with sadness. "So much time lost," she whispered. Rian gave her the warm drink and guided it to her lips. She drank slowly, as if tasting something new. The color in her face returned slightly. After a moment, she spoke again. "Who are you? What world do you come from?" "I'm from Earth," Rian said. "Human race. We came to this part of space a few decades ago. Most people avoid Trelvin. They say it's cursed." At the name of the planet, her eyes flickered with recognition. "Trelvin," she said, almost to herself. "My home. My world. I was queen here once." Rian nodded. "I saw the carvings. It said Queen Alira. Is that your name?" She closed her eyes and nodded slowly. "Yes, I am Alira of the Trovani Dominion. I was buried when my world fell. Betrayal took my throne, and my own council sealed me beneath the sand so no one would find me." Her words carried no anger, only quiet sorrow. Rian listened carefully. He could see that speaking tired her, but she continued. "I remember the war," she said. "Our skies burned with ships. My people fought to protect our lands from the Empire of Kyner. When victory was near, my council feared the peace I promised. They wanted to rule through fear and power. They saw my mercy as weakness. They conspired to end me." Rian's jaw tightened. "They buried you alive," he said softly. Alira nodded again. "They called it eternal honor. They said the queen would rest among her stars forever. I remember their faces as the chamber sealed. Then silence. I dreamed of light and voices for a long time, then nothing." Rian could not imagine what that must have felt like. Being trapped for centuries in the dark, forgotten by her own people, he said quietly, "You should rest. You're safe now. No one will hurt you here." But she shook her head. "You should not be here, human. This world is still dangerous. The machines of war may still sleep beneath these sands. You should leave before they wake." Rian smiled faintly. "I've been here many times. If the machines were going to wake, they'd have done it by now." Lyra studied him carefully. "You are not like the others," she said. "Most would take what they find and leave. Yet you dug into the ground and brought life back to a world you did not know." He looked down at his gloves, covered in dust. "I didn't plan to be a hero. I just saw someone in trouble and couldn't walk away." For a moment, silence filled the room except for the faint hum of the heater. Then Alira closed her eyes again, exhausted. Rian adjusted the blanket around her and stepped outside the shelter. The suns were higher now, burning through the morning haze. The desert stretched in every direction, endless and quiet. Rian climbed a small dune to check his scanner tower. It blinked with a weak red light, warning him that his ship's power reserves were low. He would need to recharge soon or risk being stranded. He looked back toward the shelter. Inside was a living legend, a queen from a lost age. He could not just leave her. When he returned, Alira was awake again. She had removed one of the bands from her arm and was studying it closely. It glowed faintly in her hands. "The stasis field that kept me alive was powered by these," she said. "Its energy is almost gone. You must have disturbed the seal when you found me." "Lucky for both of us," Rian said. She gave a faint smile, though her eyes were still distant. "Luck," she said. "I used to believe in destiny." Perhaps this is it. Rian sat across from her. So what will you do now? She looked out the small window toward the horizon. If my people are gone, then I will see what remains. If they still live somewhere among the stars, I must return to them. But there is something else I must do first. Beneath this world lies the Heart Forge, a source of life and power. It was built to heal our lands, to make them bloom again after war. If it still exists, it could bring life back to Trelvin. Rian listened with growing curiosity. And you know where it is? Yes, she said. Deep below the Great Valley to the east, but reaching it will not be easy. The old Guardians may still defend it. They were machines bound to protect the Heart Forge for eternity. Rian leaned forward. If it can bring this world back, then I'll help you reach it. Lyra looked at him in silence for a long time. Why would you risk your life for this? She asked. Because maybe your world deserves a second chance, he said. And maybe humanity does too. We've done enough taking from the stars. It's time we give something back. Alira seemed to study him deeply, as if searching for something in his eyes. Then she nodded. Very well, human Rian. When I have my strength, we will go together. She closed her eyes again to rest. Rian began packing his supplies. The journey to the valley would be long and dangerous, but he felt ready. There was something about her presence that gave him purpose, something larger than himself. As the day passed, Alira's strength slowly returned. She could stand for short moments now, though her movements were still weak. Her voice grew stronger. She began teaching Rian a few Trelvani words through their small conversations. By evening, a warm wind swept across the dunes, carrying a faint scent of ozone. Alira stepped outside the shelter for the first time. She looked at the wide horizon, her silver hair glowing under the light. This was once a world of rivers and forests, she said quietly. Children played beneath floating gardens. Now, it is a sea of dust. Rian stood beside her. Maybe we can change that. Lyra looked at him and smiled faintly. You speak as if it is simple, but your heart is strong. The stars will remember your kindness. Light fell slowly, and the sky filled with bright constellations. They sat near the shelter, sharing quiet stories. Rian told her about Earth, about the oceans and cities, about how humans reached for the stars. Alira listened with deep interest, her eyes reflecting the starlight. When he mentioned the wars of humanity, she nodded knowingly. Every young race must learn the price of power, she said. But if your kind can show compassion, as you did for me, then your path among the stars will be brighter than most. As the night deepened, Rian felt a strange peace settle over him. The desert, once lifeless and cold, now felt alive again. The queen, who had slept beneath its sands, now breathed beside him, and for the first time in his life, he felt that his wandering had purpose. When Alira finally returned inside to rest, Rian stayed outside a little longer, looking at the stars. He knew the next day would bring danger, but he also knew he would not face it alone. The wind whispered across the dunes, carrying faint echoes of something ancient awakening beneath the surface. And somewhere deep below, the Heart Forge pulsed faintly, as if sensing that its queen had finally returned to breathe again. The next morning began with soft light spreading across the desert. Rian woke early, packed supplies, and checked his rover. Its solar panels were full, and the engine hummed quietly. He looked toward the shelter where Alira stood, her silver robe fluttering in the breeze. She looked stronger now, though her movements were still slow. Her glowing eyes reflected the rising suns, calm and wise. Rian approached her. Are you sure you're ready? He asked. Alira nodded. My strength grows each hour. The energy of this world feeds me, though faintly. We should go before the heat becomes strong. They loaded water, scanners, and oxygen into the rover. Rian started the vehicle, and it rolled across the sands smoothly. The wind kicked up small dust clouds behind them as they moved east toward the valley. For a long time neither spoke. The endless dunes stretched far, broken only by the bones of old ships and towers half buried in the ground. Every ruin they passed told a story of the Great War. Twisted beams, shattered hulls. and the remains of giant machines lay silent like sleeping giants. Alira watched them closely, her expression unreadable. "These were our guardians," she said at last. "They were built to protect the Trelvani people. But in the final days, many turned against us when the command networks were corrupted." Rian slowed the rover. "You mean they fought their own makers?" "Yes," she said quietly. "When power becomes more important than mercy, even creation turns on its creator." Rian nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Humanity had made the same mistakes. Wars born from greed, machines turned to weapons. Peace broken for control. After several hours, the dunes began to sink into wide plains of dark rock. Strange crystal towers rose from the ground, glowing faintly blue. Rian stopped the rover and scanned the area. "These readings are high," he said. "Energy levels increasing from below." Alira stepped down from the rover and placed her hand on the rock. "We are close," she said. "The Heartforge lies beneath this valley, but the way down will not be open. It was sealed to all after my burial." Rian looked around. "Then how do we find the entrance?" Alira closed her eyes. A faint shimmer surrounded her body, and the crystals nearby began to pulse with light. She whispered something in her ancient tongue. Slowly, one of the towers split open, revealing a spiral stair made of black stone leading downward. Rian's eyes widened. "You can still control their systems." "Only a little," she said. "The bond between me and this world remains, but it weakens with time." They descended the stair carefully. The air grew cooler as they went deeper, and a faint humming filled the tunnels. The walls glowed with lines of energy that pulsed like veins. After several turns, we reached a large chamber filled with ancient machines. The air smelled of metal and dust. Massive cables hung from the ceiling, and pools of faint light shimmered on the floor. Alira walked ahead, her hand brushing one of the walls. "This place remembers," she said softly. "The Heartforge fed life to our cities. It created rivers, forests, and air. It gave us strength. But during the war, it was turned to destruction." Rian looked around at the machinery. "What happened?" Alira's eyes darkened. "When the Council betrayed me, they tried to use the Heartforge as a weapon. They changed its pulse to burn instead of heal. It scorched the surface and killed everything it once gave life to. When they failed to control it, they sealed it away and buried me alive, so no one could undo their mistake." Rian felt anger rise inside him. "That's why this planet died," as she said. "Because of fear and pride." He looked at her with respect. "And now you want to fix what they destroyed?" Alira nodded. "If the core still lives, we can restore balance. But the way ahead is dangerous. The Guardians were programmed to protect the Heartforge from all intruders, even me, once I was declared dead." Rian checked his rifle and flashlight. "Then we go carefully." They moved deeper into the tunnels. The walls narrowed, and soon they entered a long corridor filled with ancient statues. The statues were shaped like tall armored figures holding staffs of crystal. Each one stood still, their eyes closed. Rian whispered, "They look almost alive." Alira stopped in front of one. "They are, or they were. These are the Guardians of Light, bound by code and duty. If their sensors still work, they may awaken." As if her words triggered them, a faint vibration ran through the floor. The statue's eyes began to glow, one after another. Rian raised his rifle but held his fire. A deep metallic voice echoed through the corridor. "Intruders detected. Identify." Alira stepped forward calmly. "I am Alira of Trelvan, rightful queen and keeper of the Heartforge. I command you to stand down." The light in the nearest statue flickered uncertainly. "Alira is dead. The royal seal was broken." "You are false." Rian tightened his grip. "They don't believe you." Alira raised her hands. "If I were false, could I do this?" She closed her eyes, and the ground shimmered with silver light. A faint pattern appeared beneath her feet, the royal crest of Trelvan, a sun within a circle. The statues paused. Their eyes dimmed for a moment. Then one knelt slightly. "The Queen's code is valid but degraded. Verification incomplete." Before Alira could respond, A sudden noise echoed from behind them. The far wall burst open, and a group of scavenger drones rolled out, firing beams of red light. The Guardians turned their heads instantly, mistaking Rian and Alira as enemies. "Run," Rian shouted. They dashed through the corridor as beams struck the walls, sending shards of crystal flying. Alira lifted her hand and formed a shield of pale light around them. The energy crackled as shots hit it, but it held. They reached a side passage and ducked inside. Rian fired a few bursts at the drones, disabling one. The others followed, their metal bodies clanking against the stone floor. "This way," Alira said, leading him through a narrow tunnel. "We can reach the lower chamber. The main core is beyond it." They ran until they reached a wide platform overlooking a deep chasm. A faint blue glow rose from below. Rian looked down and saw the vast structure of the Heart Forge. It looked like a giant crystal heart surrounded by silver rings, each rotating slowly and glowing with light, even after centuries. It was still alive. Alira stared at it with awe and pain. "My creation," she whispered. "Still breathing after all this time." Rian set up a small console and checked the readings. "The energy levels are massive. If this thing goes unstable, it could blow half the planet apart." Alira nodded. "That is why we must be careful. To heal the world, the core must be awakened in balance, not force." She stepped onto the platform and reached toward the control pillars. Her hands glowed as she connected with the ancient system. Symbols of light appeared around her, spinning in the air. Rian watched silently, ready to act if anything went wrong. Alira spoke softly. "The system recognizes me. It is asking for the second key." "What second key?" Rian asked. She looked at him. When the Heart Forge was made, it was bound to two essences' mind, and that of a guardian commander. Only together could we command it. Without the second, it cannot awaken. "Then where is the commander?" Alira's expression turned grim. "He was among those who betrayed me. His body may still guard the key." Before Rian could answer, a heavy sound echoed through the chamber. A massive figure emerged from the shadows below. It was shaped like a knight made of silver metal, towering over them. Its chest glowed with a red core, and its voice boomed through the air. "Unauthorized presence detected. Queen Alira marked as terminated. Activating purge protocol." Rian cursed under his breath and aimed his rifle. The machine raised its weapon, a staff that fired beams of molten light. The blast hit the platform, throwing Rian and Alira backward. Sparks rained around them. Alira stood, her eyes glowing bright. "I remember you," she said. "Commander Verith. You swore loyalty, then sealed my tomb." The machine's eyes flickered red. "Verith no longer exists. Only Guardian Unit 9 remains." Rian fired again, hitting the joint of the machine's arm. It staggered but did not fall. Alira lifted her hands, sending a wave of blue energy that struck its chest. The machine roared, its core pulsing violently. "Rian," she shouted, "the key is inside its core. We must stop it without destroying it completely." Rian nodded, dodging another beam. He climbed the broken railing and jumped onto the machine's leg, holding tightly as it swung its arm. He climbed quickly toward the chest plate, using the gaps in the armor. The machine tried to shake him off, but Alira distracted it with bursts of energy. Rian reached the core panel and pulled out his plasma cutter. Sparks flew as he sliced through the metal. Inside, he saw a glowing crystal sphere. He grabbed it and dropped down as the machine screamed and froze in place. Its red light faded to gray. Rian landed hard but managed to stand. He held the sphere up. "Got it." Alira extended her hand and the sphere floated toward her. She pressed it to the control pillar and the whole chamber lit up. The Heart Forge began to pulse faster, filling the air with warmth. "The balance is restored," she said softly. "The world can breathe again." Rian looked at the glowing core below. "You did it." Alira turned to him with a small smile. "We did it, human. Together." As the light spread through the tunnels, the distant hum of machines turned gentle. The planet that had been silent for centuries began to stir again, waiting for life to return. The Heart Forge pulsed with energy, filling the chamber with a soft glow. Warmth spread through the tunnels as if the planet itself had taken a deep breath. Rian stepped back, wiping sweat from his forehead, and watched as Queen Alira's hands hovered over the glowing sphere. Her eyes were bright, shining with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "We have stabilized it," she said softly. "The Heartforge is awake again, but only partially. It needs time to adjust to the surface." Rian nodded. "Then we should leave before something else shows up." Alira's expression grew tense. "I feared this. The energy pulse from the Heartforge will attract attention. There are scavengers and pirates in this system. They sense anything unusual." Before Rian could respond, the ground trembled. A low rumble came from the tunnels behind them. Sparks fell from the walls as a fleet of small hovering drones burst into the chamber, red lights blinking aggressively. They were scavenger machines, likely drawn by the Heartforge's reactivation. Rian raised his rifle. "Get ready," he said. Alira raised her hand, and a shield of light formed around them. The drones fired beams, but the energy barrier absorbed the attacks. The chamber shook, and dust fell from the ceiling. "We cannot hold them forever," Rian shouted. "We need another way out." Alira's eyes glowed as she focused. "Follow me. I will guide us to the surface tunnels. They will not fit through the narrow corridors." They sprinted through the tunnels, dodging beams and falling debris. Alira's power pulsed as she disabled traps and shifted the energy of the Heartforge to shield their path. Rian fired at the drones when they got too close, sending sparks and smoke into the air. After several minutes, they reached a narrow spiral tunnel leading to a lower chamber. The drones hesitated at the entrance, too large to follow. Rian and Alira slipped inside, and the door behind them closed automatically, sealing the drones out. The chamber they entered was vast and circular. Pillars of crystal rose from the floor like frozen fountains. The air was cooler here, and a soft glow came from the walls. In the center of the room was a platform with a control pedestal. Alira approached the pedestal carefully. "This is the last step," she said. "If we can connect the Heartforge fully, the energy will flow to the surface. The deserts will bloom, the rivers will return, and the air will become breathable again." Rian watched her work. "How do you control it?" Alira placed her hands on the pedestal. Symbols of light appeared around her, spinning in patterns he had never seen. The pedestal responded to her touch, humming with energy. "The Heartforge responds to life," she said. "To balance, it needs harmony. That is why it could not be used during the war. Only with the right energy can it heal, not destroy." Rian looked at her impressed. She had the grace and precision of a leader, even after being buried alive for centuries. Her power, combined with her determination, made her almost unstoppable. As the pedestal connected fully with the Heartforge, the energy surged upward through the tunnels. The walls trembled, and light spread like water. The chamber vibrated, but in a steady rhythm, not chaotic. Rian turned to Alira. "It's working." "You're doing it." "Yes," she said, her voice steady but quiet. "We are doing it." Suddenly the ground shook violently. From the upper tunnels, the drones were still trying to break in. They had not given up. Their numbers were increasing. Red lights reflected across the crystals. Creating a chaotic storm, Rian grabbed a nearby control panel and activated a defensive system. Laser grids and force barriers shot out, blocking the drone's path. Alira focused her energy on the Heartforge, stabilizing it further. The drones attacked with beams and explosive charges, but the combination of Rian's quick thinking and Alira's power held them back. Sparks flew, and the air filled with the smell of scorched metal. Then the chamber shook again, harder this time. The ceiling above cracked, sending chunks of rock and crystal falling. Rian pushed Alira aside and held the shield up just in time to block the debris. "We cannot fight them forever," Rian shouted. "We need to finish this now." Alira's eyes glowed brighter than before. She extended her hands toward the platform. Energy surged from her, flowing through the pedestal into the Heartforge. The chamber filled with a brilliant light, so intense that Rian had to shield his eyes. The drones faltered, their sensors overwhelmed by the sudden surge. They fired one last time, then powered down. unable to penetrate the overwhelming energy. Rian lowered his shield and looked at the Heartforge. The energy flowed steadily now, like a river of light. The tremor stopped, and the chamber became calm. Alira breathed heavily. "It is done," she said softly. "The Heartforge is fully awake. Trelvin will live again." Rian let out a sigh of relief. "You did it, Queen Alira. We did it." She smiled faintly, her strength returning with every pulse of the Heartforge. "The world will remember your courage, human. You could have left, but you chose to stay." Rian shook his head. "I couldn't leave you down there. No one deserves that fate." They climbed back toward the surface, stepping carefully over the cracked and glowing tunnels. As they emerged into the desert, the first signs of life were visible. Tiny green sprouts pushed through the sand. Glowing faintly in the morning sun, Alira stopped and knelt, touching the growing plants. "It is healing," she whispered. "After centuries, life returns to Trelvin." Rian looked around in wonder. The barren desert slowly transformed, rivers of light reflecting in the new greenery. The ruined cities in the distance began to shimmer as the Heartforge's energy reached them. "They will rebuild," Alira said. "The people who survive will see this world restored. They will know that mercy and courage can change fate." Rian smiled. "And the galaxy will hear the story. A human and a queen working together to bring life back." Alira stood, her gaze toward the horizon. "I must travel now. The Heartforge will need time to fully restore the planet. But before I leave, there is something for you." She reached into a small pouch at her side and pulled out a crystal band. It glowed softly, reflecting the sunlight. "This is a symbol of gratitude," she said. "Wear it as a reminder of what you have done. Humanity and Trelvin will always be linked because of your courage." Rian accepted the band, feeling the warmth of its energy. "I will wear it with honor," he said. Alira looked at him with deep respect. "Your actions have proven why humans can achieve greatness among the stars. Compassion, courage, and determination, these are the qualities that bring hope to worlds, even those long forgotten." Suddenly a distant roar echoed across the desert. Rian tensed, reaching for his rifle. Alira placed a hand on his shoulder. "Do not fear," she said. "The Heartforge will protect us. But there are others who will come, curious or greedy. We must be vigilant, but this moment is ours to celebrate." They watched as the desert bloomed further, rivers appearing where there had been none, and fields of grass waving in the wind. The twin suns shone brighter, reflecting on the distant ruins now glowing with new life. Rian laughed quietly, a sound of relief and wonder. "I never thought I would see this," he said. Alira turned to him, eyes soft. "Neither did I, but sometimes hope can come from the smallest act. You dug for curiosity, and now an entire world breathes again." The day passed slowly, filled with calm and quiet celebration. Alira showed Rian how the Heartforge spread life, how tiny streams of water appeared, and how plants grew stronger with every passing hour at sunset. The desert was almost unrecognizable. The sands were dotted with greenery, and small animals once extinct here began to emerge. Birds with shimmering feathers circled overhead. The ruins glowed with the light of returning life. The air was fresh and clean. Rian stood beside Alira, taking it all in. "This is incredible," he said. "I never imagined a dead world could feel so alive again." Alira smiled. "It is not just alive. It is hopeful. And hope, once awakened, can never be buried again." They stayed together as the stars began to appear in the sky. Trelvin had risen from the dust, and the Heartforge would continue to heal the world. Humanity had once again shown courage and kindness, and a queen had returned to her throne, even if only to watch over her planet's recovery. As night fell, the desert hummed softly with life. The faint glow of the Heartforge pulsed like a heartbeat under the surface, spreading warmth and energy across the land. Rian looked at Alira and realized that their bond was not just of survival, but of shared purpose. The world had changed, and so had they. Together, they had turned death into life, silence into song, and darkness into hope. The desert of Trelvin had transformed, What was once endless sand was now dotted with tiny green shoots, streams of water sparkling in the twin suns, the faint outlines of forest beginning to grow in the distance. The ruins of the old cities glowed softly, infused with energy from the Heartforge. Life was returning to a world that had been silent for centuries. Rian stood atop a small hill overlooking the valley. The air was fresh and clean, carrying the scent of plants and water. He adjusted the crystal band Alira had given him, feeling its warmth pulse like a heartbeat. It was a reminder of courage, compassion, the bond between humans and Trelvani. Alira approached him, her silver hair reflecting the sunlight. She moved with grace now, her strength fully returned after days of rest and recovery. "The Heartforge is complete," she said. "The planet will continue to heal even after I leave." Rian nodded. "I can see it. Trelvan has life again." Alira's eyes were soft as she looked at him. "You have done more than help me survive. You have helped restore an entire world. That is no small feat for one human." Rian smiled. "I just did what I could. You're the queen. You led the way." She shook her head gently. "Without your courage, I would still be buried beneath the sands. Humanity's compassion has proven stronger than betrayal and fear." The words struck Rian. He had always wondered why humans reached the stars, why they ventured into unknown worlds. Now he realized it was not just curiosity or ambition, but the strength to do what is right, even when it is difficult. They walked together across the valley, observing the growing forests and small rivers flowing from the Heartforge's energy. Tiny animals, once extinct in this region, emerged from the hills, curious and cautious. Birds with shining feathers flew overhead, singing songs of life. "This is only the beginning," Alira said. "The Heartforge will continue to repair the ecosystem. In time, Trelvan will bloom as it once did. And perhaps one day my people will return from the stars to see their home alive again." Rian watched a stream ripple across the rocks, reflecting the sunlight. "And you will guide them?" Alira smiled. "Will. But my path is not just here. There are others who need my guidance. The galaxy is filled with lost worlds, some destroyed by war, others by neglect. I will travel and help where I can. But I will not forget Trelvanor, you." Rian looked down at the crystal band on his wrist. "And I will not forget you." For several moments they walked in silence, watching the valley come alive. The Heartforge pulsed beneath them, spreading energy like a soft heartbeat. Rian could feel it even from above. The world was healing, and hope was returning with every passing moment. Suddenly the sky darkened slightly. A fleet of ships appeared on the horizon, drawn by the energy of the Heartforge. Alira's eyes narrowed. "Visitors," she said. "Some will be curious, others greedy. We must ensure they do not harm what we have rebuilt." Rian prepared his gear. "Do we need to fight?" Alira shook her head. "Not if we show them the Heartforge's power and our intent. We do not seek conflict, only protection for life." As the ships approached, Alira raised her hand. A pulse of light radiated from the Heartforge, forming a barrier around the valley. The fleet halted, sensing the energy and the Queen's presence. The ships hovered cautiously, scanning the valley. One ship's communicator activated. "We sense the Heartforge and the Trelvani Queen." "State your intentions." Alira stepped forward, her voice clear and commanding. "I am Queen Alira of Trelvan. This world is under my protection. Life has returned here because of the Heartforge. We do not seek war. Any who come in peace are welcome. Those who come to harm will face the consequences of their actions." The fleet paused. There was no immediate response. Then one ship lowered its weapons and sent a small craft to land near the valley. A humanoid stepped out, bowing slightly. "Queen Alira, we have heard of your return. We seek only to witness the restoration of Trelvan. No harm will come from us." Lyra's eyes softened. "Then you may watch. But the Heartforge is not for exploitation. Its purpose is life, not power." Rian watched quietly. He understood that the galaxy was full of different beings, each with their own goals. The fact that Alira commanded respect, even after centuries buried beneath the sand, showed the strength of her presence and the human courage that had aided her, The small craft returned to its fleet, and the ships remained in orbit. The Heartforge's energy continued to flow, spreading across the planet. Rivers grew wider, forests denser, and the air richer. Life was returning at an unprecedented pace. Alira turned to Rion. "You have done well, human. You have proven that kindness and courage can bridge worlds. Humanity will be remembered for this, not for conquest or greed, but for compassion." Rion felt warmth in his chest. "I only did what I thought was right." Alira placed her hand on his shoulder. "And that is why you are remarkable. Your actions saved a queen and a planet. That is a legacy most cannot claim." The sun began to set, painting the valley in shades of orange and gold. The light reflected off the rivers and forests, creating a scene of life and hope that had not existed for centuries. Rion and Alira stood together, watching the world awaken. "I must leave soon," Alira said quietly. "My path calls me to the stars. There are other worlds in need, other hearts waiting for guidance." Rion nodded, feeling a mix of pride and sadness. "Will you return to Trelvin?" Alira smiled. "Perhaps one day. But even if I do not, the Heartforge will protect this world. You have my trust to watch over it until my return." Rion looked at the valley. "I will protect it. I will make sure life continues here." Alira's eyes glowed with gratitude. "You have done more than you know. And in doing so, you have shown that humans are capable of greatness among the stars." A ship descended from the sky, its engines quiet. Alira stepped forward, ready to leave. She turned to Rion one last time. "This crystal band is a symbol of our bond. Wear it as a reminder of what has been achieved here. Humanity and Trelvan are linked forever." Wyam touched the band, feeling its warmth and energy. "I will remember," he said. Alira stepped into the ship. The engines hummed, and the craft lifted into the sky. She looked down at the valley one final time before ascending toward the stars. Rian watched her disappear into the horizon, a sense of hope filling his heart. The Heartforge continued to pulse, spreading life and energy across the planet. The deserts bloomed, rivers flowed, and forests grew. Animals returned, and the skies were filled with birds singing songs of life. Trelvin, once a graveyard, was now alive and vibrant. Rian stood among the growing fields, looking at the horizon. He felt a deep connection to this world, to the Queen, and to the future that lay ahead. The desert of silence was gone. In its place was a world of life, hope, and endless possibility. For the first time in his life, Rian understood what it meant to be part of something greater than himself. Humanity had proven its courage, and Trelvin had been reborn. Together, they had changed the fate of a world. As night fell, the stars appeared in the sky. The twin moons reflected the light of the Heartforge, glowing softly. Rian looked up and smiled. The galaxy was full of wonders, and he had witnessed one of the greatest. He walked through the valley, feeling the soft grass under his feet, listening to the flowing rivers and the chirping of birds. Life had returned to Trelvin. The story of a human and an alien queen would be remembered for generations. The galaxy had seen the power of courage, compassion, and determination. A human had dug through the sands, a queen had returned to breathe, and together they had restored a world. The stars would remember them, and Trelvin would never be silent again. Rian sat by the largest river, looking at the glowing forest in the distance. The Heartforge pulsed beneath the ground, a constant reminder that life and hope were alive, and that no world was ever truly lost if someone cared enough to try. He closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of the planet, the energy of the Heartforge, and the legacy of what they had accomplished together. Humanity had walked among the stars and shown that even one person could change the course of history, and on Trelvin, life would continue to grow. Forever touched by the courage of a human and the wisdom of a queen, the desert had risen from the dust. The Heartforge shone brightly, and the galaxy had learned that hope is never buried. As long as someone is willing to dig,